Welcome back to the Tech and Real Estate Podcast. Today, we are joined by Sean O'Toole, a seasoned real estate investor and the founder of Property Radar. With a unique blend of tech experience and hands on real estate experience, Sean has developed tools to help investors gain critical insights from public records. In this video, you'll learn how to leverage off market data from Property Radar to build your leads list and close deals. Let's get started. Hey, Sean, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Super excited to have you here today as you have a ton of experience in the real estate space, as well as developing technical solutions too. But before we get into that, would love to hear a little bit about your story of how you actually began in real estate.
Yeah, that's a long story. So, um, got my first computer when I was 10, started as a software programmer, did pretty well, to the point I actually bought my first house when I was 18. So that was kind of my touch point in real estate. And started my first software company at that time too. Did pretty well. But had some partner issues, and we ended up going our separate ways. And my dad talked me into buying a real estate magazine in the Hawaiian Islands with him when I was 19. So that was my second kind of touch into real estate, and learned a lot about real estate marketing. Then went back to school, and then went on to be part of 3 startups in Silicon Valley. And so spent a good chunk of time there. And then after the dot-com crash, ended up flipping real estate, everything from, condos to a large industrial project to a Taco Bell. And then finally brought it all together in 2006 when I launched Foreclosure Radar, the precursor to the company today, Property Radar.
Excellent. Love to hear your background, in tech, and then also shifting over into real estate due to economic, changes. But that magazine that you went in with your dad, were there any points in that magazine that stuck out into how you ended up back into the real estate space?
The biggest thing, I learned a lot about marketing in real estate, advertising, and all of that. I kind of went all in and I've been a marketing geek ever since. But the other big thing I learned was how important, understanding economic factors was, because we bought that magazine just before the debt crisis in Japan. And that debt crisis ended up, creating a world of hurt in the Hawaiian real estate market. And so here we bought what was a really good business, and owned it for probably 2 of the worst years in Hawaii's real estate history. And that definitely taught me that I wanted to, pay a lot of attention to, economics, what's happening in markets, and those things, so that I didn't get stuck in that situation again.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. Having more of a pulse on the market, understand any risks that can come. So then now you fast forward, you've been in real estate for a period of time, and then a problem occurs. A problem occurs, I assume, which is what spurred your first project, which was the foreclosure tool. So can you explain a little bit what that pain point was?
Yeah, I mean, so after starting to flip properties, because I'm a software guy, I started writing software to manage my own business and then collect my own data, and try to get ahead of the competition. And I discovered public records was just this amazing, resource. So fast forward to 2005, and I see a bunch of concerning signs in the market. And end of 2005, sales are starting to slow, and I'm just like, I don't want to own any real estate right now. So I got rid of the pieces of property I still held at that time. Couldn't convince my wife at that time to sell our primary residence, though that would have probably been a good idea too. And really was not sure what to do next, but I was so enamored with public records, I kind of had this idea for a Bloomberg terminal for real estate. Um, I've since kind of moved on from that vision, but I was already collecting data on every foreclosure in California, and I said, you know what, I'm going to take that to market first, because there does seem to be an uptick, in foreclosures. And of course, I started working on that kind of mid 2006 after I sold off my real estate. And by mid 2007, we were seeing $1 billion of property sold in 1 month at the foreclosure auctions, and it was just absolutely taking off.
I bet. Yeah,
But
you started creating it right at the cusp of when the foreclosure wave occurred.
it was very good timing. It was funny, the when I first went out to show kind of the product, I went to a California Association of Realtors event, and had the foreclosure radar booth, sign up, and the rest. And realtors would go, why would we care about foreclosures, right? They were still in that pre kind of foreclosure mindset. And I said, well, come here and type your zip code in, right? And they typed the zip code in. We had these nice maps, and it would have all these pins pop up, and their eyes would get about this big, and then they go, your data's not right, this isn't right. They get upset and walk away. And so I did close no business that day. It was terrible. um, but 6 months later, Leslie Appleton Young, the chief economist for California Association of Realtors, was going around the state saying, hey, if you want to be in business, you better sign up for this service because you need to know what's going on, and this is real. And at that point, they believed, and we became a partner with the California Association of Realtors and helped a lot of realtors, help a lot of homeowners with short sales.
I bet. Yeah, huge help to be able to aggregate that data, present it in a way that agents could use, and be able to help both ends for them to keep their jobs. It's a very different landscape, I bet, then, as well as some of those homeowners to get out in the best way. So, putting on my
And of course, our investor customers made, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars, probably more than $1 billion across all of our customers. It's crazy.
yeah, I bet
Process.
huge returns. And putting my data geek hat on, I have to ask, how are you able to get foreclosure data? Were you like web scraping? I could imagine that a lot of these counties maybe didn't have like readily available API feeds. So it must have been a challenge.
No, by and large, the county recorders don't offer APIs at all. And they only have 5 pieces of data, which is date, document number, grantor, grantee, and document type. That's the only 5 pieces of data they have. The rest is an image. And so you have to go from that image and you have to abstract the information. And it's finally getting good enough now, but for many years, and certainly for, the first 10 years we were around, AI, OCR, optical character recognition, and the rest just wasn't good enough to do that. So it largely happened manually and largely happens in the Philippines or India where that abstraction happens. So we get the document images, send them abroad, they abstract them, we pull them back in. And no one company, even the biggest companies, do the entire country themselves. So it's kind of this incestuous world, and you get these big players like First American, Fidelity, Black Knight, CoreLogic, which has come out of First American, et cetera, that are in the business of that. But like all of those companies are too slow in, say, Alameda County, California. And there we actually have to send somebody to the county and look at it because it takes the county forever to provide images. So it's a mesh of stuff.
I bet, especially how different every county could be. And it is a shocker because I worked with public records for criminal eviction records.
Oh
And
yeah, sure.
Cook County, one of those that you have to still get like a court runner at times to go. So it's crazy in the day of 2024. Data still
Yeah.
required.
Yeah. Well, in 3,142 counties, and each one can do it however they want. It's nationally, I should say county or county equivalents, because, in the East Coast, it gets a little weird. But yeah. Yeah, it's a challenge. There's no question.
Yeah, so I'd love to hear how, you solved this problem initially with foreclosure radar, and then the years progress. you helping investors, they're getting great returns. How does it change in terms of like who's using the product and how it ultimately morphs into something bigger?
Yeah. So, I would say we probably had a few more investors than we had realtors, but those were our two primary groups. But we also had all these other crazy users from, the Department of Justice to, local code enforcement, agencies. So a lot of government users. I remember we had back at that time, we had a school district CFO trying to figure out what was going to happen to enrollment next year based on how many people were losing their homes. So it was really a kind of a nutty time. And, in 2010, I saw enough regulatory changes, and I was one of the first to kind of come out in the news and say, "Hey, I think this crisis is over. It's still got a ways to play out, but the regulatory changes, the things that are in place now, this is coming to an end." And I was a little early with that. It really peaked in 2013, but it was definitely the right. It was what was happening, and or peaked for our business, peaked in 2013. Foreclosures didn't peak in 2013, but so uh, in 2010, I said, "Hey, listen, we've got to think about what's next because as these foreclosures slow down, our business is going to slow down." And our foreclosure business halved between 2013 and 2015. It literally fell in half. So in 2010, I started working on Property Radar, which was basically to say, "Hey, listen, we've got this great user interface, people love it, et cetera. For foreclosures, we can do the same thing for all properties. And if whether you're looking for transfers or other types of distress or mortgages or whatever, like we can put this all in one platform." Moving a little bit back to my Bloomberg terminal for real estate kind of original vision. And so we launched that in, so I guess late 2012, early 2013, and and that was a big shift for us. We were still just in 5 states on the West Coast, and so it was a few years later that we got national. I wish we'd gotten national faster because it did allow some competitors to pop up, and First American in particular got really lax or easy in selling their data to folks, which created a few competitors where we really had none, back in that 2013 timeframe.
Got it. So you saw if regulatory changes that it would be inevitable that the business that you currently had would just not die, but would have less traction. So then you pivoted and thought maybe that idea I had before with Bloomberg Terminal for real estate could come to fruition. And I can imagine that at that scale, you're probably, needing to hire a lot more folks, do a lot more marketing. How is it trying to get the name out of a new product that you put out?
Yeah, it's tough. And we all talk about product market fit. The other thing was, we kind of went from foreclosure information and in a market where people were being forced to change, right? If you didn't change and do something new and go find new tools, you were out of business, right? When we switched to property information, there was no such impetus to force people to change, to do something new. And especially in the property information business, everybody's got a little different use case, a little different piece of data they need, a little different thing they're trying to accomplish. And it was really challenging. And I also had some family challenges around that same time. So those were a challenging, few years for us in making that switch. I feel pretty confident we had the best property search tool then, and it's even better now. I think it's the best in the industry, bar none. But it was still challenging with so many different use cases. And, I really realized this when I was at a conference and somebody used us in the foreclosure days to go, "Oh my God, you guys are still around. Like you saved my life. Like I would not have survived the foreclosure crisis without you." So lots of goodwill there. And he goes, "Well, tell me what you're doing now. I want in, right?" And so I started walking him through the different use cases. He was a realtor for a realtor. Like you could do this, you could do this. It's like, nah. And it wasn't until item find, he's like, oh my God, you guys can do that? But it took the CEO of the company 5 tries to find the use case that worked for that customer. So it was challenging, honestly, and it was a tough few years for the business as we tried to find the foothold there with that. Ultimately, we kind of pivoted again. It's still very much the same product, but we realized that the customers that were having the most success were using us to build an audience. So they were looking for folks that they either wanted to buy property from or wanted to sell a service to. And by focusing on that use case rather than due diligence and just kind of the broader property information use cases, starting to bring in the marketing data like phones and emails and other things and building marketing tools, that then became a very clear, okay, we use this platform to grow our business by reaching out directly to the people who need us most.
Got it. So you had different use cases that came your way. A little bit difficult to sift which ones are maybe going to be the top impact for each customer, but over time, you were able to see different success stories, understand by bringing in certain data points, having a end-to-end flow solution for certain types of use cases really help the product to stand out. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about what those use cases are. So some of our audience are investors. What's a use case that they could use to apply Property Radar in their business?
Yeah, I mean, so a lot of folks, most investors have used public records, just like you talked about with the eviction records, et cetera, to reach out to folks, especially folks in distress, right? Because they're more likely to sell at a discount. And so that is the most common, use case in the investor world. Now we do some things there that you don't see as often. So we have more ways to reach out, a little deeper information. But the biggest thing is we have over 250 criteria. One of our top competitors a little while ago said, hey, they did a thing saying, hey, we've got 40,000 different ways that you can search our database to find your best, prospects. And I went, that's interesting. That doesn't seem like a very big number. Let me just tally ours. And I went through each of our criteria by the number of options for that criteria. And it came out just to under a Google, Googol. And if you Google that, it's a very big number. So like we're way far ahead. So if you want to find, specific situations and market, and get really good messaging to those. One of the biggest mistakes like investors make is they'll market to an absentee owner list. Stop for a minute and think, what is an absentee owner? Right? So it could be a landlord, could be a second homeowner. That landlord could be a retired landlord that's maybe thinking, it's time to finish up, or it could be a burbro. Right? So like there's lots of different things that make up absentee owners, and we treat them all the same. But that retired landlord's probably more interested in finding somebody who'll take good care of his tenants that, he knows and has had a relationship with the last 20 years than, maybe somebody that's a burbro that's got over leveraged and needs to get out because, like those are totally different motivations and different things you need to talk to them about. Right. So, um, you know, that's where I think most investors make a mistake. And we allow you to get much deeper in your targeting because of the vast array of criteria we have. Then we just have much better data quality than all the first American resellers, who's largely who we compete with.
Excellent. And I think that's a really great point that a lot of investors sometimes skip over. So it's the data quality and also being able to get granular. A lot of investors who want to start automating their processes and having leads lists, they may just, like you said, everything for absentee owner. And they spend thousands of dollars on marketing. They're like, but I don't get it. How come no one answered? Because maybe your messaging is not targeted to them. Or maybe they're not even an absentee owner. That's outdated for, you know,
Right. Bad data.
care. Exactly. So it's excellent that the focus that you guys have is on the two ends, the quality as well as in being in depth. Do you offer any like presets? So it's maybe someone who's starting off and maybe doesn't know all the little intricacies that they want to look for a list. Any quick lists available?
Yeah, we have a bunch of quick lists, and we do that a little differently in that when you go in and you select a quick list, we explain the quick list to you, but then we put all the criteria in. And so you can go, oh, I see what they did. They used this, 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 and this. So by using our quick list, you also learn and you can adjust those lists. So rather than, a high equity list where they arbitrarily pick what high equity is, we show you the different criteria, and then you can click on the equity criteria and adjust it to what you want for high equity, right? So, I like the way we approached it because it teaches you fundamentally what to be looking for, and one of the interesting things is list stacking has become this really popular term in the industry. And it drives me nuts because at the end of the day, list stacking should just be criteria. You shouldn't have to buy this list, import them both into a tool and see what's on both, right? Just say add this criteria and add this criteria. You essentially just list stacked, and you can see the count and go, oh, there's none of those. Let's drag that one out and try this one. And, oh, there's, you don't have to go buy separate lists and then put them together and stack them, right? Like that, the whole concept's crazy. The other thing that's crazy about that concept that I really try to get across to folks is you really don't want to list stack on your computer. You want to list stack at the owner. And what I mean by that, let's say somebody's, in foreclosure, tax delinquent, and has a bankruptcy going on, right? They've got all three of those situations like, oh, let's list stack and market to them because they're in higher distress. And if you do that on your computer, now you're just sending them a generic message, I buy houses. If instead you say, okay, three different situations going on here, I'm going to do targeted lists to each of these folks. And I'm going to send marketing, whether it's calls or whatever, that say, hey, we're an expert in helping people that are going through bankruptcy. Hey, we're an expert that helps people in foreclosure. We are an expert in helping people who are tax delinquent. Now, what you're naturally doing is you're doing list stacking in the mailbox, which means that person's getting a lot more attention than the folks who's only in one of those. You're spending less marketing dollars on them. You're spending more dollar marketing on the folks that have multiple things going on. But they're seeing that you're experts in each of those things. And they're like, okay, I keep hearing from this company. They know a lot about all the things going on with me. They're probably the right people to talk to.
That is so critical. I think that's really great insight where it's not being generic, being specific. You look like an expert when you do so, when you reach out to these individuals based on their particular scenario. And it kind of reminds me of just like where we've gone as a society. Like now, if you open up, say, Instagram, you're going to get all these ads that are like really custom to you. Even some of them that you're like, didn't realize it was an ad. I just kind of clicked it and started going through it. So it's almost like you have to take that kind of attention for when you are doing marketing yourself of being personalized and not just general.
Yeah, agree.
So I'd love to hear a little bit more on the tech side. Where with AI and data analytics, being able to get insights at your fingertips, becoming more and more prevalent. Is there any initiatives that have been done for Property Radar, ones that are in scope for the next couple of months or years?
Yeah, I mean, just quite a few. One though that I was personally surprised by, like, I've got a background even in the 90s in data science. So, I've been following all this stuff forever. And I've even read a lot of the history of, von Neumann and the various folks that really led to AI being where it is today back in the 50s and earlier. So I'm kind of a student of all this stuff, but I'm still surprised. And I'll give you an example. So we have 250 criteria, more than anybody else in the industry, more than a CoreLogic or First American or whoever, right? That you can use to build a list. It's really the most powerful property search in the industry, period. The other side of that is 250 criteria is kind of overwhelming, right? Especially if you're new, it's like, oh my God, I don't even know where to start. And take something like absentee owner, right? If you're like, ooh, I want to market to second homeowners in Tahoe, if you didn't know the industry terms, you wouldn't know to go look for absentee owner or non-owner occupied, which is another industry term, right? So how would you find a second homeowner, right? And this becomes a real challenge, and it becomes a real support challenge for us because there's all these specialty industry terms that we have that may not translate to you when you're going, I just want to find a second homeowner. So on that particular thing, we built an AI that helps you, and you can just type in what you're looking for. And so one day when I was testing it, I said, I want second homeowners in Tahoe. And of course, there's no city called Tahoe. So what is Tahoe? You know, what cities, zip codes, et cetera, are you going to put in for Tahoe? Um, and who are retired. Okay, I didn't say age or anything else, right? And and who have equity, whatever, right? Like, so do this query, and it comes back with, and I've been doing this for a long time. I wrote, I defined what things we should have searchable, et cetera. And it came back with a criteria that I hadn't thought of, which is there. But if you'd said second homeowner to me, I would have just said, okay, non-owner occupied equals true, right? But it said non-owner occupied equals true and owns number of properties owned is 2 or more. Because if it's a second homeowner, that implies they own another home. And I'd never thought about adding that. And I just thought that was like so cool that the, AI outdid me in building criteria. So it's pretty neat. I mean, with AIs, occasionally it comes up with crazy answers, and like Tahoe or North Lake Tahoe, it might turn into Tahoe City and Kings Beach, but leave out Truckee and Tahoma, right? So it's imperfect, but boy, it sure gives you a great head start.
Exactly. Like the head start with AI is huge, right? Because in this example that you provided, someone to know all those criteria just getting into real estate probably wouldn't know and would be missing out on specific filters without having an expert by their side. Maybe they don't have an expert on their team, but with your AI assistant, they can.
Yeah, and that's really important to me because it's always been my goal to build the most powerful solution. But as you build in more power, you build in more complication, right? So some people are like, oh, this competitor of yours is easier to use. And I'm like, yeah, all you do is type in a city and click, foreclosures. Yes, that's easy, but look at all the things you can't do with that. And now if you say, I want foreclosures in Truckee, it's just as easy. So we've got both the power, and with AI, we can also deliver the ease of use, kind of best of both worlds. And I'm super excited about that because that's, I do want it to be easy to use for that new person, and and still super powerful for the folks that are, we've been fortunate, through the foreclosure crisis, we had the largest foreclosure buyers in the nation, as well as, the government users like the Department of Justice and others looking at issues. And and we still have that. We've got some of the largest wholesalers in the nation, iBuyers, et cetera, and they've migrated to us over time, even though they have the budgets to go buy data from CoreLogic or First American at $250,000, $500,000 a year. They're using us instead because we're just better quality and better tools, and they don't have to build it all themselves.
Right? Already having everything in one place, the data as well as the UI. So for you, Sean, what are you excited about for the future of real estate? We're very different times now where there's been so much knowledge shared in the space. But pretty much almost anyone I talk to has at least thought about like, how can I get it to real estate, zero money down, all the way up to, like you said, large corporations, having their hands in real estate. So
Yeah.
yeah, what do you see for the future in terms of the players and maybe also just property market movement itself?
I guess what I do see and what I want to see, despite that our business is doing all this hard work to pull these public records together, I would love to see, um, a national initiative. If you think about our major markets, stock market, bond market, commodity market, money market, et cetera, and you look at most of those, we now have, sub-millisecond updates on what's going on in those markets. Where in real estate, we largely still wait for the industry to self-report 30, 45 days after the fact and make me president for a day and I modernize our recording system nationally for e-recording so that data actually comes in and is available on a real-time basis. And you know and you think even what that does for helps the stock markets and other things, because you can go, oh, how many loans did Wells Fargo make today, what areas, et cetera. Like you could start asking these bigger picture questions. And when you look at the Fed and Congress and the rest steering this big ship that's the US economy, this instrument is super, super out of date. So that's the change I would like to see. I don't see anything progressing, there. In the meantime, I think companies like mine will continue to make this data, more accessible, more usable, and easier to use with AI and especially in that marketing and selling side. I think we can really make it easier. And my goal there is I want to save small business in America, including small investors, by giving them the tools to compete with these big businesses, because we're losing, small businesses are losing on Google, on Facebook, and these mega platforms that are just, more and more aimed at big companies. And you got more, a realtor now that wants a lead, they buy that lead from Zillow, they're going to give up 40% of their commission. And at $1 million price point in California, at least, that's 10 grand. If they spent that 10 grand marketing themselves, they'd probably get, multiple deals out of that instead of one. And they get impressions with tens of thousands of folks in their market for that same dollars.
That is such a great point that you made. One I didn't even think about before. When you put it in terms of dollars of how much commission you could be giving away when you're marketing or trying to acquire leads from sites, say like Zillow. Whereas if you can build your own pipeline with, say, Property Radar, you could save so much, build your brand, and it really work out for you to still keep your business in the long run.
Yeah, that's my goal.
Excellent. Yeah, love the vision. Thank you so much, Sean. And for those who want to get started on Property Radar or learn more about your journey, how would they do so?
Well, propertyradar.com would be a great place to start. You can find both Property Radar and myself on LinkedIn, Facebook, kind of all the usual places. I a little bit on Twitter. So yeah, for sure. Any of those places, happy, and anybody who wants to reach out to me directly. I did hand over the CEO role, so I spend most of my days talking to customers and meeting with customers and working on kind of product strategy and vision. So I'm always happy to hear from folks.
Great. Thank you so much for your time, Sean. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.